Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Johnny Depp's love life has always been in the news, but one story stays quiet and special. His relationship with Vanessa Paradis, away from Hollywood's crazy world. Johnny found calm and peace with a French singer and actress. Their love lasted 14 years, while they built a family and raised 2 kids, Lily Rose and Jack, away from the cameras. While other love stories ended badly, this part of his life was filled with respect and privacy. What really happened between them? And why does this secret love story still stand out today as one of Johnny's most special relationships? Johnny Depp's life has always been around cameras, gossip and drama. But behind all the noise, there's honesty that stays quiet, strong, and really touching. His secret love story with Vanessa Paradis. This is not theatery of fancy events or endless fights. It is a story of 2 people who found peace with each other away from the cameras. Johnny first met Vanessa in 1998. He was already one of Hollywood's biggest stars, famous for being wild and doing unexpected things. She was a French singer, actress, and model already loved in her own country. When they met in Paris, something strange happened for a man known for being crazy. Johnny felt calm. For Vanessa, it was not about fame or money. It was about the person behind the news stories. From that moment, their story began quietly. Unlike other famous couples who lived in front of bright cameras, Johnny and Vanessa picked the other way. They built their life far from Hollywood, mostly in France. The world expected fights, but what they showed instead was stability, respect, and family. Together they had 2 children, Lily Rose and Jack. Johnny often said that becoming a dad changed everything for him. For the first time he found balance. He was not just an actor or a world star. He was a father, a boyfriend, and a man finally settled down. Vanessa played a big part in that change. She gave him a feeling of home, a steady beat that Hollywood had never given him. Their love was special for many reasons. While newspapers waited for fights and drama, Johnny and Vanessa gave them very little to write about. They were private, careful, and focused on each other. Johnny often talked about how Vanessa saved him, how she helped him become a better man. 4 years, she was his rock. But even strong stories face change. After 14 years together, Johnny and Vanessa said they were breaking up in 2012. Unlike many famous breakups, theirs was quiet. No public fights, no mean words, just respect. They both agreed that love sometimes changes into something different, but it never really goes away. To this day, they stay connected through their children and through the love they once shared. This hidden part of Johnny Depp's life is often forgotten, but fans who look closer can see how important it was. Vanessa Paradis gave him stability, family and peace at a time when he needed it most. Their story proves that not every great love has to end in drama. Sometimes the quietest relationships are the ones that leave the biggest mark. So when people ask what made Johnny Depp into the man he is today, many will think of their movies, the fights, or the court cases. But the truth is a big part of the story was written in France, next to Vanessa Paradis in a life that few really know about. When Johnny Depp and Vanessa Paradis chose each other, they also chose something else. Privacy. At a time when Hollywood couples were making news every single day, these 2 decided to take a different road. Instead of building their love under the bright lights of Los Angeles, they turned toward peace, quiet, and a family-focused life. Not long after they met in Paris, Johnny made a big decision. He moved away from Hollywood's craziness and went to Vanessa's home country, France. For a man who had spent years under constant watching, it was a huge change. In France, there were no photographers waiting on every corner, no newspapers trying to catch every fighter smile. There was only space, space to breathe, space to love, space to raise a family. For Johnny, France was not just a change of place, it was healing. Vanessa was already living there, and together they built a home that was different from anything Hollywood expected. Life slowed down. Instead of award shows and endless red carpets, they focused on dinners at home, walks through quiet streets, and moments that belonged only to them. Their family grew quickly. In 1999, they had their first child, Lily Rose. Just 3 years later, their son Jack was born. For Johnny, becoming a father was a big moment. He often said that before his children, he was lost, pulled by fame, trouble, and the pressure of Hollywood. But with Lily Rose and Jack, everything changed. Suddenly, he had something more important than movies or money. He had love he could not replace. Johnny often said that having his daughter gave him direction. He talked about holding her for the first time as the most grounding moment of his life. With Vanessa by his side, he found a rhythm that was both normal and amazing. Nights were no longer about Hollywood parties. They were about bedtime stories, laughter, and the small joys of being a father. Vanessa, too, helped make these choices. She was not drawn to the noise of Hollywood. Instead, she loved the beauty of simple things. She taught Johnny the joy of living quietly, of protecting what really mattered. Their children became the center of their world, and every choice, where to live, how to work, what projects to take, was made with family in mind. Raising Lily Rose and Jack in France gave them something special, a normal childhood. While many famous kids grew up in the public eye, these two were protected. They went to school like other children, played with friends, and lived without the constant flash of cameras. Johnny and Vanessa worked hard to keep it that way. This time of their life together showed a side of Johnny Depp that few people expected. The wild actor known for his crazy roles became a loving partner and father. He built a life in France not because it was fancy, but because it was real. And for over 10 years, that quiet, family-focused life became the hidden heart of Johnny Depp's story. In Hollywood, love stories often burn bright but die fast. The newspapers love drama, cheating, and shocking news. But Johnny Depp's relationship with Vanessa Paradis was different. It stood out because it was quiet, private, and full of respect. For 14 years, their love proved that not every love in the spotlight has to be crazy. What made their relationship so special? First, it was the way they chose to live. Johnny had always been known as Hollywood's bad boy, the man who avoided rules, who rejected fame, who walked away from what people expected. Yet with Vanessa, he found something he had never really known before: peace. She calmed him in ways no one else had. For a man always around baignoires, Vanessa became his calm. Johnny often talked about how she saved him. In interviews, he said she was someone who gave him stability when he needed it most. He said that before Vanessa, his life was drifting, but with her, he found direction. She was not amazed by his fame or money. She cared about the man, not the movie star. That simple truth gave Johnny a safe place where he could just be himself. Another reason their love stood out was how they handled fame. While many famous couples let cameras into their lives, Johnny and Vanessa closed the door. They rarely walked red carpets together. They did not want attention. Instead, they built a private world where their love could breathe. That choice gave their love strength without constant outside pressure. They were free to focus on what really mattered. Their family, their children, Lily Rose and Jack, became the heart of this love story. Johnny often said that being a dad was the best thing that ever happened to him, and Vanessa supported him through it all. She gave him a life based in everyday moments. He seemed calmer, more settled, more human, and many said Vanessa was the reason. Their love was not perfect, but it was real. It was built on respect for each other and quiet love rather than show. In a world where relationships are often judged by headlines, Johnny and Vanessa's story stood out because it needed none. It was a love lived in private away from cameras, but strong enough to change both of their lives forever. After 14 years together, Johnny Depp and Vanessa Paradis faced a moment no couple ever wants: the decision to split up. But unlike many Hollywood breakups, this was not filled with public fights or angry blame. Instead, it was a breakup marked by quiet dignity, respect, and grown-up behavior, and that is what makes their story so special. By 2012, rumors had already begun to spread. The press guessed endlessly. Some said they were fighting, others whispered about growing distance. But through it all, Johnny and Vanessa stayed silent. They refused to turn their private life into fun for the world. That silence was their shield, protecting not only themselves, but also their children. When the announcement finally came, it surprised many people, not because they'd split up, but because of how honestly they handled it. In a world where famous splits often make front-page news with anger and fights, Johnny and Vanessa chose another way. There were no angry interviews, no public blame, no war over money or custody, just two people accepting that their story had changed. For Johnny, it was important to make one thing clear. Vanessa was not just his old girlfriend. She was the mother of his children. In every interview, he talked about her with respect. He said how much she had meant to him and how she would always be part of his life. Vanessa too stayed private. She did not say bad things about him. Instead, she focused on protecting their children from the crazy media attention. Their children, Lily Rose and Jack, were their first worry. Both Johnny and Vanessa made sure that even though they were no longer together as a couple, they stayed united as parents. They shared jobs and worked together to keep their kids' lives as normal as possible. This promise showed the world that even in breakup, love and respect could last. What makes this breakup stand out is not just what happened, but what didn't happen. There were no court fights spread across newspapers. There were no social media wars or angry books. Instead, there was grown-up behavior. They chose to step away from each other without destroying the love they had built for over 10 years. For Johnny, the years with Vanessa stayed some of the most important of his life. He openly said that their time together had shaped him, that her influence and their family gave him balance he had never known before. For Vanessa, the relationship was a defining chapter too, one that brought her love, children, and a partner who respected her deeply, even in the end. In Hollywood, breakups often become public shows, but Johnny Depp and Vanessa Paradis wrote a different story. Theirs was a quiet ending to a meaningful chapter handled with grace and dignity, and that perhaps is why this part of their story continues to stand out. It reminds us all that love can change, respect can remain, and sometimes the most powerful goodbyes are the quiet ones. When we think of Johnny Depp, most people picture the Hollywood bad boy, the man who played pirates, weirdos, and outsiders, the star who lived on the edge of fame, fights, and chaos. But behind all that, there exists a quieter truth. A truth shaped by a love story that lasted 14 years. A love story with Vanessa Paradis. Even though their romantic journey ended in 2012, the legacy of their love still lives on in Johnny's life, and the way fans remember them, it was more than a relationship. It was a partnership of family, and a chapter that changed both of them forever. The first part of their legacy is family together. They raised 2 children who grew up not in the bright lights of Hollywood, but in the quiet towns of France. Lily Rose and Jack became the heart of everything they did. To Johnny, being a father was not just another job. It was the most important one. He has often said that his children gave him purpose, that without them, he might have lost himself to the craziness of fame. Vanessa's influence in this is clear. She helped create a home where family came first. Away from flashing cameras, their children lived a life that was for the most part normal school days. Quiet dinners and summers by the French countryside shaped their childhood. That choice to protect their kids from the storm of famous culture is one of the most powerful parts of Johnny and Vanessa's legacy. And it worked. Today, Lily Rose Depp has stepped into the spotlight on her own terms as an actress and model. Jack, on the other hand, has chosen to live a more private life. Both show the balance their parents fought for, the freedom to choose their own paths, not the ones written by newspapers. That freedom is a gift born directly from Johnny and Vanessa's love. The second part of their legacy is respect. Even after their breakup, Johnny has never spoken badly of Vanessa. In fact, he continues to describe her as one of the most important people in his life. During interviews, he often praises her strength, her grace, and her role as the mother of his children. Vanessa too has stayed dignified. She never turned their breakup into headlines. She never made money from secrets or fights. Instead, she carried herself with quiet class. In an industry where broken relationships often become public wars, Johnny and Vanessa's story stands as an example of grown-up behavior. Their legacy is not about how their love ended, but about how it lasted in another form. They may no longer be a couple, but they stay connected through respect and family. That is rare. That is powerful. The third part of their legacy is the way Vanessa shaped Johnny himself. Before her, he was drifting. He had fame, money, and talent, but he lacked balance. With Vanessa, he found a calmer version of life. He welcomed being a dad, welcomed home, and welcomed a rhythm that was new to him. Even though their romantic relationship ended, that change stayed with him. Fans often say that Johnny seemed most at peace during his years with Vanessa. The wild parts of his life softened. He smiled more. He talked of love more. He carried himself not only as an actor but as a father and partner. That change remains one of the quiet legacies of their time together. And then there is the memory. The way people still talk about them today in a world of quick Hollywood romances. Johnny and Vanessa's love story still feels different. It lasted longer than most. It gave the world 2 children who continue to shine. It ended without fights, and it left behind a lasting feeling that true love does not always need to be loud. Sometimes the strongest love stories are the ones lived in silence. Even now, fans look back at photos of Johnny and Vanessa together and see something real. Not a show for cameras, but a connection that felt genuine. That legacy, the memory of a love both private and powerful, continues to inspire people who believe in love beyond fame. For Johnny, the love with Vanessa is more than history. It is a foundation. She was with him during some of the most important years of his life. She gave him children, peace, and a sense of home. Those gifts remain long after Theramance ended. That is the true legacy of their love. So when we look at Johnny Depp's life today with all its ups and downs, its fights and victories, we cannot forget the Vanessa chapter. It is not as loud as the headlines. It is not as dramatic as the fights. But it is one of the most important chapters he ever lived. Because love, even when it changes, leaves marks that never fade. And for Johnny Depp, the love he shared with Vanessa Paradis remains one of the most defining parts of his story. A hidden love, a quiet love, but a love that built a legacy far greater than fame. Johnny Depp's life has been filled with movies, fame, and fights. Yet when we look deeper, one of the most meaningful chapters is the one he shared with Vanessa Paradis. Their relationship was not about flashing cameras or dramatic headlines. It was about building a life together, raising 2 children, and creating memories far away from Hollywood's noise. What makes their story remarkable is not only the love they shared, but the way they let it go. They showed the world that breakup doesn't always have to mean being mean. Respect, dignity, and loyalty carried them through. Even years after splitting, their words about each other stay kind. Their connection still shows through family and shared values. The legacy of their love lives on. Lily, Rose, and Jack are proof of the love that once held them together, and Vanessa's influence continues to be a part of Johnny's identity. For fans, this hidden chapter reminds us that the strongest love stories are often the quietest ones. In the end, Johnny and Vanessa's journey teaches us something simple yet powerful. True love doesn't always need the spotlight. Sometimes its greatest strength is in the silence it leaves behind.